Hello and welcome. As you can tell by the title, Obsessed Movie Man I am. O.M.M. and
Sorry about that. Hello and welcome. As you can tell by the title, I'm the Obsessed Movie Man. O.M.M. Star Wars. Need I say anything else? It's one of the greatest cultural phenomena ever unleashed upon the viewing audience. The movie had a simple script of good versus evil, fantastic actors playing memorable characters, and a terrific composer to supply the triumphant music to the awesome action scenes, as well as the dark and dramatic moments. I think it's safe to say that practically everything that can be said about Star Wars has been said and talked about in great detail. Star Wars was a big part of my childhood, and I would like to talk about the one that started it all, A New Hope. And by the way, this is not just any review of any of the re-released Star Wars movies, no. We're taking a look at the theatrical cut of the 1977 version of Star Wars. No visual effects, no CGI, no Greedo shooting Han first. This is Star Wars as it was originally presented. How did I miraculously get a copy of this? From Santa Claus, of course. Actually, to be brief, there was another re-release of the original trilogy in 2008, I believe, and all three films came out with an extra disc that had the remastered version, as well as the original unaltered version of the films. At the time, I was not aware that they contained the Star Wars films I had always wanted to see. I thought it was just another re-release. When I found out the truth, I rushed over to pick them up, but they were gone. It turns out they were limited editions, and as I checked eBay, my heart sank when I looked at the prices. Lucas had struck again. In the end, I was able to get A New Hope for Christmas, which was $65. Though Empire and Jedi are out of my grasp, I am thankful that I have at least the first of the Star Wars movies. Let's go over the story, as if you've never heard it before. The evil Empire rules the galaxy and creates a massive weapon called the Death Star, which is capable of destroying an entire planet. There are also a group of rebels, one of them being Princess Leia, who stole secret plans to the Death Star. As the Empire closes in on the rebels' ship, Leia stores the plans inside of a droid, R2-D2, and both he and his fellow robot, C-3PO, escape and land on a desert planet. R2-D2 attempts to carry out the princess's request, that being get the plans to a past general named Obi-Wan Kenobi, so he can safely deliver the droids to the princess's home planet. Things go amok though when the droids are captured and put up for sale. They are purchased by Luke Skywalker, a farm boy who dreams of leaving his planet in hopes of becoming a pilot like his father. One day, however, he comes across Obi-Wan Kenobi, who reveals that not only was his father a great pilot, but he was also a Jedi Knight, an ancient warrior who was a guardian of peace and a master of the mystical force. And from there, the story becomes solely about Luke and his journey from farm boy to hero. Other characters are introduced, such as Han Solo, Chewbacca, and one of the most iconic movie villains, Darth Vader. While some classify this as a science fiction film, I'm among the group of people who consider it to be a science fantasy film. A lot of the tropes are present here. For example, we have a princess who needs to be rescued from an evil kingdom. There are pirates, which are basically Han Solo and Chewbacca. Then we have the wise and powerful wizard, Obi-Wan. I think it's a fair assessment to say that it's science fantasy. Director George Lucas had numerous inspirations for Star Wars, taking influence from Kurosawa films such as Yojimbo, as well as old serials like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. That's actually where the opening Star Wars text trawl came from. It was a tribute to the Flash Gordon serials, which used to do the same thing as a way to keep viewers up to date on past episodes. I don't want most of the review to be about George Lucas's struggles while making this film, but it should be mentioned because I think it's one of the greatest movie-making accomplishments. When I say that, I mean it as a film that many thought was destined to be a flop, kind of like Jaws. Lucas had to deal with desert storms when shooting the Tatooine scenes, props like R2-D2 would not work, cast and crew started to complain, and many other disasters arose. Lucas was put through a tough ordeal and he worked his hardest to see that his story was put on the screen, and in the end, he succeeded. All of the characters are unforgettable. Luke, Han, Leia, Chewbacca, the droids, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan, and so many more. They all have some sort of definitive trait. Luke is a naive but kind-hearted boy, Han is the dashing and arrogant scoundrel, and Leia is the brave and firm leader. I guess the only complaint I do have is that Luke is a bit whiny. You thought Anakin from the prequels was bad? Listen to Luke in his first few scenes. I've asked myself, though, why I'm not as annoyed with Luke as I am with Anakin, and I think the reason is because Luke grows and learns a lesson in all three movies, whereas Anakin doesn't. He constantly whines about everything. I can excuse Luke being annoying in the first film because when we are introduced to him, he is already in the midst of his problems, and we do sympathize for him. Once the character loses everything that is dear to him, he decides to man up and try to make a difference in this grand universe. It would be really easy for me to go over all the other characters, but the last one I think I should talk about would be the villainous Darth Vader. Played by actor David Prowse and voiced by James Earl Jones, Vader has become one of the most recognizable characters in all of cinema. What is it that makes him so memorable, though? Lots of things, actually. He's really tall, his bone-chilling voice, along with his audible breathing, the black mechanical suit accompanied with a long black cape, and his menacing helmeted mask. I consider him to basically be a Black Knight, which is fitting because Vader is indeed a fallen Jedi Knight. There seems to be absolutely nothing left of himself, and all that was once good has been replaced with cold steel. This guy means business and shows no compassion. If you get him upset, be prepared to get a serious choking. His design is great, his betrayal is great, and the character is overall great. All of the effects and designs of the ships, aliens, and droids were some of the most creative and imaginative things I had ever seen. My favorite scene is still when Luke goes to the cantina and all of those different kinds of aliens are there. It was unbelievable. No two aliens were the same, and they all looked great in their own unique way. The Imperial ship, the X-Wing, and of course, the Millennium Falcon were all amazing to look at. I think each kind of gave off a personality. The Falcon is a bit old and falling apart, but it's free and adventurous. The Imperial ship is large and ominously threatening, bringing despair and fear into those who are in its way. One small piece of trivia that I would like to point out is the use of Hammer actors. For those who don't know, Hammer Studios was a British film studio which specialized in the horror genre. They had their own series of gothic movies series like Dracula, Frankenstein, and many more. I bring this up because a few Hammer actors have appeared throughout the Star Wars movies. In A New Hope, we have two main villains, Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin, played by David Prowse and Peter Cushing respectively. What's funny is that Peter Cushing frequently played Dr. Frankenstein in Hammer's Frankenstein films, and David Prowse was in two of those films, which he played two different versions of the Frankenstein monster. So it's basically a reunion for the two actors. You can argue it's a coincidence, but in the prequel trilogy, Christopher Lee is cast in the role of Count Dooku. In the Hammer films, Christopher Lee plays Count Dracula, while Peter Cushing plays Van Helsing. I think it's a very safe assumption to say that George Lucas was a fan of the Hammer films, and that's awesome because I think Hammer is one of the most definitive horror movie making companies in general. The last thing I'll talk about are my thoughts on this specific version of Star Wars. I am referring to it as Star Wars because that's how it was originally released. There was no Episode 4 or A New Hope. It was simply titled Star Wars. I think that might have been a smart idea for two reasons. One, Lucas probably didn't know if the first one would be successful enough to get a sequel, and two, the addition of Episode 4 might have confused a whole lot of people and they might have thought that they missed out on the other episodes. Don't worry, General Public, you only have to miss Episodes 1 through 3. The rest are good. Even though all the CGI is gone, I must say that I'm still impressed with what Lucas was able to do. The sets of the cantina and on the Death Star are great, the miniature models on of the ships are so cool and extremely detailed, and of course, Han shoots Greedo first. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, in the original cut of Star Wars, a bounty hunter named Greedo is about to shoot Han, only for Han to shoot Greedo before he has the chance to fire. When the movie was re-released for the first time, Lucas decided to alter the film so Han wouldn't be presented as a killer, so the scene was digitally changed so that Greedo slightly shot at Han first, only for Han's head to digitally and hilariously dodge the blast and shoot Greedo. Everyone has made such a big deal of this one scene, but after seeing the unaltered version, I do prefer Han shooting first. It added diversity among the ensemble. We had a character that wasn't afraid to kill. It was just like an old Western movie. There are a few scenes that don't look as good as the re-release version, but I maintain that this is probably the superior version of Star Wars, and that Lucas didn't need to change that much. I do like some of the changes though, like the scene where Han runs into the room full of stormtroopers. That was a funny scene in the re-release, and it didn't make sense in the original cut since it was only 4 troopers that scared Han off. I actually do like some of the CGI shots of the ships, such as when the Falcon leaves Mos Eisley, and I also thought the shot of the X-Wings approaching the Death Star was nicely done. But other than that, I think I will stick with the original cut. It's really a shame that this was only offered for a limited time. I'm hopeful that one day they'll do this again for a possible 50th anniversary, or maybe now since Disney owns the rights to Star Wars, they'll hear the pleas of the fans who want to see Star Wars as it was originally presented a long, long time ago, so we can see that galaxy far, far away again. Thank you. This is an O.M.M review. This is O.M.M signing out. May the Force be with you.